Hello, this is, I guess, the first video of what I'm starting to do now, which is a YouTube channel called The Film Graduate, where I finally put my degree that I spent 3 years studying for to some good use that isn't working full-time in retail. So, for those of you who don't know me, I am Ross. I studied film at Bournemouth University, and I graduated, and I'm still trying to find a job. But I've been wanting to do this for a while, and I've been working on a very long, big video essay series where I look back over each phase of the MCU. But I thought now would be a really good time just to get a sort of general chit-chatty start to the channel, where I basically share my thoughts and feelings on the last era, I guess I don't know where it's headed, of Doctor Who. Or Docky Who, as I love to call it. And I thought I'd share it with a cup of tea. That's already gone off, that's a fab start. A few just bullet point, you can't even see that, a few bullet point list of notes. So I'd like to start off just by sort of talking about my history with Doctor Who, to sort of give you the context of where I was at going into RTD2, as it has been coined by the fandom. I've grown up alongside Doctor Who. It is probably my favourite show of all time, and I don't think that's an understatement. It's the earliest show. I remember watching Smith and Jones when that aired as a kid. I must have been 3 or 4. I remember watching that. I did a quiz with my friends the other week to prove how much that I love Doctor Who, and I could name about 180 of the new Who run titles.
Get a life, get a grip.
I've grown up alongside it. I remember it vividly throughout my life, even at its lows, and I know I'm going to probably offend some of the fandom straight away 2 minutes into my channel, but I was not a fan of the Chibnall era. It just lacked the strength of the writing of the previous eras. I was really excited for Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor. I'd seen her in Broadchurch and an episode of Black Mirror before, going into the era, and I was like, this is going to be insane. She's an incredible actress. Chibnall, who wrote Broadchurch, which I thought was a phenomenal series show. But sadly, something went wrong in the process and the era just wasn't very strong for me. And suddenly, out of nowhere, the announcement of RTD returning happened.
Yes! Well done, Donna.
Oh yes.
And it filled me with so much excitement. I don't even know how to put into words. It felt like the king had returned. Series 1 to 4 of Doctor Who is probably my personal favourite. It's the most I rewatch of the show, probably for nostalgia as well, but it has my probably favourite episodes and finales outside of World Enough and Time and The Doctor Falls. It probably has my favourite run of finales, even though they do have some issues. But the companions, the music, the set, like everything about that era is so perfect to me, and like things I wish Moffat continued, such like the conclusion of families, the home lives, that emphasis on the impact it had on like Jackie and Martha's family. I think all of that was so perfect and quintessentially Doctor Who. So to know that that would be coming back was so exciting. And then from there, from his announcement, it just kept on getting better. Murray Gold was coming back, and I love Murray Gold as composer. I listened to a playlist dedicated to his Doctor Who work religiously. We got Ncuti Gatwa being announced as the 15th Doctor, but before that we'd have David Tennant and Catherine Tate returning for 3 60th specials. It just felt like everything was going to be perfect. And I know that people had issues with David Tennant and Catherine Tate returning, but for me, in my perspective of looking at what that meant for the show, to me that was like, this is kind of really exciting, because the people like my older brother, for example, who left the show when David Tennant left, my parents who probably haven't watched it since David Tennant, outside of watching it with me but not really caring, they were kind of like, oh, I might tune in for this, like, you know, David Tennant's back. And I know as a fandom we love to be like, oh, David Tennant's back again, but we have to think about it for like the wider audience. For me, this was such a good idea to bring in the most popular face for 3 stories with probably one of the most popular companions, to kind of just reignite that passion, that excitement, not just within the fandom, but within wider audiences. If general audiences start watching the show again and it really starts building up viewers, then that sets Ncuti Gatwa's run off on a massive sprint, because he's regained the audience. They're going to tune in for the next episode, the one after that. And if it's as good as we know Russell can be, then we're golden. I'll talk about now the 60th anniversaries. So, also I should preface, I probably put an extreme amount of pressure on this era of Doctor Who. I think a returning showrunner we'd never had before, especially one to the calibre of Russell T Davies. I would say Moffat is the better episode writer, but Russell was much better at his much better at his series arcs and kind of tying it all together really nicely. Although saying that, Moffat does do a very good, like, series 5 I think is phenomenal. I really like series 10. So they both have their strengths, but it's a very scary thing, I guess, to return to a show that you've left and have such a good legacy of. Am I incapable of talking about, wave my hands around? No. Russell has two types of writing. On the one hand, we have the most mature and dark and serious and incredible character work you'll ever get with, like, Children of Earth, Donna's whole story arc where he took a companion that everyone hated for being too loud, made us love her, and then took that all away and returned, like, so brilliant. He's so good at doing these tragic and incredible dark storylines of and specifically Children of Earth, which I think is one of the most harrowing TV shows pieces of TV series I've ever seen. So I was kind of, and since he worked on Doctor Who, I've only seen It's a Sin, but that again is so dark and depressing and serious, and I love that style that he has of writing. Again, it's so character focused. It's where he really shines. Then on the other hand of that, we also have the Russell T Davies that will write things like,
"No, I'm not the swine! I spit on them!"
Good. Blimey. Oh, excuse me.
Well, that's no...
I need to be naked.
That's the spirit of...
I think he's got two very different ends of the spectrum, where it's either really serious, dark and depressing, or a bit too humorous that it comes off a bit too camp and a bit too corny for my liking, especially now that I'm older and I don't have nostalgia bias to get me through these corny humour moments. So we went into the 60th anniversaries and I was buzzing. All the rumour mills were running wild. Neil Patrick Harris has been confirmed as playing the Toymaker. I'd seen this insane rumour that, like, the reason that David Tennant is back is because the Toymaker's manipulating reality, and it's going to be this whole plot of we're so obsessed with nostalgia, and that's why David Tennant's come back, and it's all of these, the rumour mill was going off the charts. So I tuned into the Star Beast a day late because I was in Manchester visiting some friends, and I stayed off Twitter for 24 hours, which, if you don't know me, that's an incredible feat. And then I tuned in, I turned it on, and I was there was red flags, I think is the best way to phrase it. So I'm going to go for a sip of my tea. Yeah, I wasn't too overly joyed, but I was in denial, and I held out hope. So the Star Beast exemplified every issue of RTD1 that I don't really like. It was a bit too camp, a bit too corny. Beat the Meep, whilst adorable, suddenly becomes such a cartoonish, corny villain that I couldn't take. Like, it's not what I want in Doctor Who.
Now to hell with this! Exhibit C! No stone guns from me! Just die!
And I get it is a family show, I get it is supposed to be for families, but I think we've seen in more recent years that sci-fi and adventure shows that are aimed at sort of younger audiences can still be serious and dark. I don't know. I don't really know who Stranger Things is aimed at, because when it came out I was 12 and I watched it. It's 10 years later and it's still going, or something like that. So, but I don't know if that's aimed more at, like, this. I know Doctor Who's probably got a younger demographic, but Stranger Things does a very good job at juggling humour with dark seriousness, and I feel like Doctor Who should really adapt that more mature approach. But the Star Beast really exemplified a few issues in just terms of weird writing choices, in terms of how it was handling the Doctor with Donna, given the situation where we left off in the End of Time.
Remembers me, she will die.
Bad.
No, she doesn't.
It also did a classic Russell T Davies Deus Ex Machina issue.
This fool
Donna Noble is descending.
Binary. Non-binary. Binary.
Which I'm not a fan of, and it just kind of felt a bit too perfect. And I said to myself, oh, this could all be part of the bigger plot, you know, seeing these theories. But I will say, I was most excited for Wild Blue Yonder, because we knew nothing about it, whereas the other two we'd seen a lot of footage for. I tuned in the next week to watch Wild Blue Yonder. God, what a title. And I was like, you know what, why am I stressing? This is amazing. It was serious, it was slow, it was eerie. Murray Gold's music was so good at setting the tension. The practical effects were amazing. The green screen, not so much. But what's Doctor Who without a bit of questionable CGI and visuals? Like, if that's what I've got to critique is the background of the shots, then I'm fine with that, because it was so good, it was so creepy, and the way that like it actually explored the Timeless Child arc, it actually explored Flux, it actually added depth and emotion to that, and just letting Catherine Tate-Davidson act for that whole episode, it was just amazing. I really enjoyed Wild Blue Yonder, and it's one of the few that I've rewatched of this era. And then obviously it ends setting up the giggle, and I was like, okay, I'm now ready for the giggle. And then the giggle rolls around, and it's pretty good, but it didn't fill me with a lot of hope, I'll put it as that, because the giggle did buy Generation, which I wasn't a fan of, because I don't like the ramifications that like there's still another Doctor out there, because then in every situation, I know he's in retirement, I know he's on bed rest, but why isn't this Doctor helping when like it's so grave and so in danger? He would, but he's not. And then the cherry on top of that was that they split the TARDIS in two, and I think it would have hit so much harder if this Doctor actually gave up the TARDIS, if he had to say goodbye, because then it is kind of really establishing that he was the Doctor, but now Ncuti's the Doctor. But it didn't work like that. But Ncuti, I will add, as soon as he's on that screen, he steals it, and he is the Doctor. Fantastic casting, fantastic actor. Probably my favourite Doctor theme. I do love the Madman with a Box, but nothing like it's so good. I just wish it got given a moment to really shine in, and I can't really name a moment where I'm like, yes, that's when that theme came on. But alas, the 60th specials ended. We had a few weeks to wait until the Christmas special, and Ncuti's era really begun. And I went into that with a few hopes. I wanted a slightly better title sequence, which we did get. I wanted the TARDIS to really be zhuzhed up, is that the word? Like Capaldi's was from Smiths. I do think the set had so much potential, but it was never really given that. And it sadly, never got zhuzhed up. I think if you're going to have such a big TARDIS like that, you should be constantly collecting memorabilia throughout the adventures, like decorating, painting. But then it's not really the set you can do that with, so I don't know. And there's nowhere to really put chairs like there was with Capaldi's. I don't know. Capaldi's TARDIS is just peak TARDIS. I diverge. 60th anniversaries, in hindsight, I was in denial. At the time, I was optimistic still. But this is when I was telling people to start watching. So like the 60th is just a bit of fun. It's Christmas special. This is when it really gets going. And I was so excited for this. And I tuned in on Christmas Day. And I was a bit like, oh, we're still doing more camp, corny Doctor Who. We're not doing the seriousness. And I said to myself, oh, it's fine, because it's the Christmas special. They're always like this. They're always a bit more fun, a bit more... The Goblin song, I'll allow, you know, it's a bit of fun. But then it did have its serious moments, you know, that whole darker timeline where Ruby has been taken and that whole stuff. And I really enjoyed getting to meet, Sherry and... Oh, I can't remember Ruby's mum's name. I think that's a bad testament after seeing her throughout 2 series. So I really enjoyed the whole family dynamic. I thought it was a really fun intro to Ruby as a companion. And as well as for Ncuti, you know, he kind of, other than that one scene where he talks to the policeman, when he comes running in, it's just, yes, here we go. But again, I still had my issues, but I put those aside because it was a Christmas special. Seems to be a reoccurring theme, I will say. Biggest testament to that episode, for me, was the mysteries it established for this era going forward. And that's something I think really lacked in the first series of Jodie Whittaker's run, Series 11. There wasn't really much mystery or series arc. Series 12 did have one, but I didn't really enjoy it. And then Series 13 was the overall story, and to be honest, that was probably the most I enjoyed a Jodie series. But from The Church on Ruby Road, we had the mystery of who was under that hood, because you don't hide a character for it to be a dissatisfying reveal. Why? I don't know if we had any snowing yet, but potentially that. And then also Mrs. Flood. Who is Mrs. Flood? How is she able to break the fourth wall? Why is she kind of changed as well, because when the TARDIS dematerialises, she was shocked by that, but then once the Doctor reverts the timeline, she then knew what a TARDIS was, so it's kind of like, what's gone on there?
Never seen a TARDIS before.
We were kind of given all of these inklings of mysteries, and we're left on that cliffhanger of the Doctor welcoming Ruby into the TARDIS, and it was like, okay, I'm excited now for season 1. 5 months later, I've somehow persuaded some of my uni friends. I'm like, trust me guys, this is when this is going to be some good stuff. We've got some really cool mystery boxes here. This is Russell T Davies we're talking about, who I don't think really ever fumbled a series arc too much. But I was like, I really think it's going to be really good. So we tuned in for the 2-part series premiere. Well, I say 2-part, 2-story, 2-episode series premiere of Space Babies and A Devil's Chord. I was mortified. Now, if I thought The Star Beast was a bit childish and weaker, if I thought The Church on Ruby Road as a Christmas special was a bit too immature and not serious enough, the sheer embarrassment after telling my 21-year-old uni friends to watch this episode, where the first episode stems around talking babies fighting the bogeyman. It was rough. Even I wasn't enjoying it. I sat there like, oh, this is everything I don't want it to be. And that's like the 4th time. Well, 3rd time really. This is like the 3rd time this is really happening. But we got through that one. And again, it continues the mystery boxes. It continues the snow. It continues the memory change. Like, there's so much happening there. It was like, okay, what is going on here? That is the one through line that kept me going. And we watched The Devil's Chord, and that was a lot better for me. It was very different again to what we're used to. We had another Pantheon member with Jinx Monsoon's Maestro, and I really thought creatively it was such a cool episode. From the music, the visuals, the way that like Newt London was then a canvas that dropped and we're in this like realm. I thought so many cool things here. And I also loved how Ruby really got to show, because we'd already seen she's very musical, she was playing piano. I loved how we got to see that. And then that came into her helping defeat Maestro with her playing the piano. But it still, I don't know, it still didn't fill me with the biggest of confidence. But I will say, that moment where Ruby's levitating in the air and we hear her hidden song, and then it cuts to Carol of the Bells and it starts snowing, they've done such a good job there of amping up this mystery of what is going on, what is happening, and then it just doesn't go anywhere. It's such a disappointing reveal, because I remember seeing the comparisons between the theme that she hums and the Trickster's theme, and then we know that Russell T Davies had these big plans for Skye in Sarah Jane Adventures, so it's actually going to be a whole trick from the Trickster, and it's very similar to a baby being left on a doorstep. I kind of could see it all adding up into this conspiracy of, is this a big Trickster ploy? Again, the Trickster was known for his big black hood, gown, which is very similar to what we see pointing at the Doctor. But we'll come back to that. And then I can't remember what episode 3 was. I want to say 73 yards? Is that... No, it's Boom. Boom. Moffat's big return. And I did really enjoy Boom, but I think it slowed... Towards the end, it did get a bit too slow. And this is when I then picked up on Susan Twist. The first time I noticed it was in The Church on Ruby Road. I was like, that's the lady from... thingy. What do you call it? I can't remember what you call it. Wild Blue Yonder. I was like, what's going on here? Probably just reusing extra, but hey ho. And then I didn't clock the Devil's Cord one, and I didn't clock Space Babies. I had to see those on Twitter. Then in boom, Ambulance straight away. I was like, okay, what is going on? I'm really invested. Like, this is a weird, we've never had something like this. This is really cool. But yeah, my only issue with Boom is it does kind of, it goes on a bit too much, I think. Just kind of towards the end, it sort of starts to lose me. But an insane performance from Gatwa, an insane performance from Millie Gibson, and seeing Varada Sefu, I hope I pronounced that right, seeing her suddenly pop up when we know she's the companion for the next series, that was another case of, what? Like, what's going on here? And again, like, we continue the mystery of when the ambulance can't name Ruby's next of kin. It can't, it starts snubbing suddenly as well. It was all just really cool stuff. And then going forward from that, we go into probably my favourite episode of season 1, 73 Yards. Aside from the ending, I don't know, kind of losing me a bit there, but I think that is one of the coolest episodes of Doctor Who we've had in a long time. It's like the Welsh folklore, horror aspects to it, like the way that whole pub scene is shot. The lighting of this episode was really like one of the best I've seen. Like when she's in that bed at the end and the lights start going, we were all sat there like, whoa, what's going on here? This is sick. I don't know, it got a bit like Black Mirror-y for me towards the end, and like this, like the futuristic, the not too distant future setting. For me, this is like, obviously it's left very open-ended, which I think is a detriment to it, but my interpretation of the ending has always been Ruby's biggest fear is abandonment, and if the 73 Yards woman is an encapsulation of Ruby and her fear, then by people talking to it, they act on that fear. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's how I interpret the episode. Obviously, it makes no sense as to how and why this is happening. And it kind of loosely comes back at the end, which just then kind of, in my opinion, makes it a bit worse because it's harder to then love that episode. Thought and Bubble next up. Really enjoyed that one too. I think it's a really interesting way of doing a Dr. Light episode. And I think the way it handles the themes it explores, I'm not too sure how much I'm allowed to say, but the way it handles the exploration of the Doctor's skin colour and race, and that twist that I didn't see coming, and I really hate that I didn't see coming, because I've seen a lot of people say that like, like if you're a person like me, you wouldn't notice that, but like literally every character being white, I didn't pick up on that, and I felt it's kind of like, it's very dark reflection, like how that's so just naturally ingrained into the TV industry that we don't notice, and like the whole industry as well, that we don't pick up on the lack of diversity. But then we're always told, oh, too much diversity, that's too bad. But then this whole episode, for me, that whole twist perfectly worked and really made me kind of reflect on like how poor diversity and how a lack of awareness I actually have, which I'd like to say I did have, but I didn't. So I really enjoyed Dot and Bubble. I thought that was really well acted. I get that ending again, Shooty's performance. I do wish that was the first time we saw him cry. He does cry a lot, and it kind of undermines every other crying. If that was the one that really set him onto those tears, that would have really hit just that little bit harder. But anyway, so aside from a slippery 2-episode start, 3, 4 and 5 have been very strong. I'd even say 2. 2 was very good. I've really enjoyed these 4, and I'm going to Rogue, and I love Rogue. I think it's really good. I love the Bridgerton vibe. I've never seen Bridgerton, but I know that's what it's got a lot of influence from. I really enjoyed its vibe. I really enjoyed just the episode as a whole. Jonathan Groff, I love from Glee and Hamilton. So I really enjoyed seeing him and Doctor Who. That felt very strange. I do think the relationship between Rogue and the Doctor needed a bit more time, but I like how it ended. And it was nice just seeing the Doctor and Ruby have that moment together. That, for like one of the first times we really got that proper end of an episode debrief moment. That's what I really got to say about Rogue. And then going forward from that, we start the 2-part finale, and it's suddenly like, damn, we're here. What's going on? And I guess that's the issue of the shorter series, when you know the first episode is probably going to be a bit of a weak one, because that's just how most RTD series openers are. I'd say Smith and Jones and Partners in Crime I love, but Rose and New Earth, not a fan of. And same goes with Space and Babies and Robot Revolution, not really a big fan of.
Spoilers.
But when your first 2 when your first episode is kind of a 50-50, it's going to go either way, and then the last two coming up to the two-part finale, that then leaves 5 episodes to explore the series arc. And I don't think that's enough time, especially when you have Doctor Light episodes like we did. But as I say, the mystery has been building. We've had all of these appearances of Susan Twist, but we didn't know that was her name. The Ruby's mother speculation. We've had the snow falling, and then suddenly, without any build up into this, we're just straight at unit. We're exploring it, and I think that's one thing they could have really done with, was adding in at the end of Rogue or at the start of Legend of Ruby Sunday. They land somewhere and they notice this lady's appearing a lot, or it snows again, and we needed that. Imagine if we didn't have the end of Turn Left with the bad wolf posters everywhere. We didn't have that reveal of Roses coming back. We didn't have Donna remembering that and telling the Doctor bad. If we didn't have that, and then Stolen Love just kickstarts with the Doctor and Donna running out like, what's going on? It's kind of like, what? We haven't earned this tension, this raise in the stakes yet. And that's kind of what, to me, the Legend of Ruby Sunday openings felt like. And I do have a few issues with the Legend of Ruby Sunday, but I think as a whole it's actually a pretty solid part 1. I don't mind it. It is, I think in hindsight, it's worse. But at the time, it did a really good job of gripping me, because it was just purely about exploring the mysteries. There's not much in terms of we're fighting against something until towards the end, but I think that whole chunk of the story where we're in the time chamber and something's going on, that we're seeing the memory, it keeps changing. Again, I really like Ruby as a companion. I've seen the comparisons between her and Clara. I do get those. I've personally always liked Clara. I even liked her in Series 7. I've always liked Ruby. I think her desire to know her mum is really interesting and compelling. I think Minnie Gibson acts the role really well. What else do I have to say about her? Admittedly, she could have a bit more tension with the Doctor. I think that's the main thing that she lacked throughout her tenure. But I really liked her confidence. I really liked her. I did really like her relationship with the Doctor, but I think, similar to Donna, it's that best friend vibe. But with it lacked those scenes like in the Fires of Pompeii when Donna's telling the Doctor she's not happy with, it lacked any of those bits. It just had all of the goodness. And 101 of writing is, without conflict, without tension, there is no drama. And without drama, it can grow boring. It's all fun and games watching happy stuff, but that gets a bit stale. So I do feel like they just lacked a bit of that. I would have loved to have seen her snap in that sequence when they're in the time chamber and have a go at the Doctor for not going over and fight, because why wouldn't he? He could have found out for her, and then he tells her, I can never take you back because I've been there. I'd be like, well, you had the chance to and you didn't, and you know how much this means to me. Even if you didn't know, you'd be angry because that's your one chance and he's ruined it. But we didn't get that. But then throughout that scene we get Chidwell, is that his nickname? He goes behind the TARDIS, and then the thing starts forming, and it's like, okay, now it's really starting to pick up, and then we get the really creepy voice, something really weird's happening. We'd also had the TARDIS making these noises throughout the series since World Beyonder, which I didn't pick up on until Rogue, I'd say. So again, another series arc which was so subtle and really because we were so focused on the in the foreground ones of Susan Twist and the snow and Ruby's mum, that this little background one slipped past me completely. So then from there it's kind of just boom, 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 we're going to keep going. Doctor goes to this speech. We get the "Do you dream of being an ambulance" line, probably peak Doctor Who there. We get that really incredible music. Murray Gold is working his chops off with that score. And the Sutek reveal, I feel like it's a little bit cheeky because Susan Triad Technology, Sutek, change the spelling. I don't know. It's not even an anagram. It's a bit of a cheat, but I'll allow it because the reveal was so cool. I think that's where it goes downhill. Is it? Yeah, Sutek's revealed, then the episode ends. To be continued. And then it turns out I can go watch the next one at the cinema. And you best believe I did. Some of my friends were debating it, but fair enough to them, they weren't as big fans as I was. I'd never got the chance to see Doctor Who in the cinemas because they're the Doctor I watched at home. So I took this chance, I booked a seat on my own, I went to my local Bournemouth Odeon iSense as well, spent £10 on my ticket. I'd been out day drinking at the beach the day before, cycled down to the beach, parked up, went to the cinema, and then watched Legend of Rubicon again. And again, I think if what it set up was delivered on in a satisfying way, would be a really good 2-part finale, because I get the argument that it's not really an episode in itself, Legend of Rubicon, it is just a half of the story. But that's fine with me if the second half delivers. Instantly the stakes are raised too high. The whole universe is dead. So instantly I know Russell T Davies. I've seen 5 of his finales. I know that when the world goes bad, when time's at risk, it's not. He'll find, and this is the man that will find any way to resolve any of his issues. I know it's coming back, it's fine. The episode carries on. I do quite like the memory TARDIS. Was that what it's called? That's alright. Bit of a timey-wimey lingo to excuse his existence. But then we're really just trying to figure out who Ruby's mum is. That's the whole thing for this episode. Because Ruby's mum is also shrouded from Sutekh, the god of all gods. The one that Maestro feared, that the Toymaker feared, that we should be really scared of Sutekh. My main issue with Sutekh, I hate that he has been perched on the TARDIS since the Tom Baker episode. That to me makes no sense. I think it made a lot more sense if by bringing the TARDIS to the edge of reality and Wild Yonder, where we first hear this groaning noise, is where Sutekh has been like banished to, and then he reforms and clutches on there. I think that makes a lot more sense. Because then also, why have we never heard this noise? Why have we never heard that? We haven't. So that's revealed, and I'm kind of like, okay, whatever. Ruby goes towards Sutekh with the tablet. I can't really tell you anything else that really happens. Spoon Lady, that was actually a really nice scene. I will give you that. That was a real nice slow and sad moment for Doctor Who, for this series especially. That was a really lovely moment. But yeah, we get towards the end. We time to 73 yards a bit, but not enough to kind of, because the DNA testing was never in that episode, so it kind of just, don't know, you can't call back to something and tie it in something that wasn't there, if that makes sense. So we get to the face-off at the end, and, oh god, Deus Ex Machinas to the max. Admittedly, the gravity strength gloves were established in the Church on Ruby Road. The cable the Doctor collected, well, the rope the Doctor collected earlier in the TARDIS, and it all does kind of call back to Church on Ruby Road, where I'm learning the vocabulary of rope, I suppose. The fact that the God of Death allows Ruby to get so close to him, and I do really like that Ruby stands up to this massive dog. I do personally wish they kept the original design. I think that's such a cool design. The dog is just, you can tell they're in a room with nothing. They managed to get the clip over. The Doctor then suddenly regains control of the TARDIS, which has never been established before with a whistle. Harriet is blown to smithereens. That's something I would actually say. The whole Harriet Arbinger reveal in Legend of Ruby Sunday, I loved, because she has that big moment for like, oh, I was born for it. Like, that moment I was like, I like this character, like, she's cool. That whole reveal where she starts doing the monologue and we get the mention of the tricks, I was like, oh my god, are we go? But no. Anyway, back to Empire of Death. The Doctor regains control of the TARDIS. They run in with the rope, attach it to the TARDIS, and then the two goons of Mel and Susan just slowly walk. And it's like, we've literally already seen them just with a blow kill everything in sight. So why is now they're not doing that and they're just walking? Convenience, that's why. The Doctor conveniently regains control of the TARDIS. They pilot off into the vortex, and I do quite like the idea of bringing death to death brings life, but the way they defeat Sutekh is by closing the doors and dropping him into the vortex, which was previously done, so why would that work this time? And that's that.
That's that? That's what? What was there? Was no finer details? What was that?
Lights back everywhere. We also, in the previous episode, had Mrs. Flood give her evil, incredible monologue, then tell your maker I will come to storm down his gates and seize his kingdom in my true name. That's really just setting up, who is this Mrs. Flood character? Really like that. She's back, so I was like, okay, I guess that's what we got coming up next. But I was just kind of like, oh, it's just such a cheap conclusion to the story. And I guess now is my chance to talk about my main issues with Russell T Davies finales, and that is the Deus Ex Machina of them all. But I think there's a very clear distinction between series 1 to 4 and season 1 and 2, which does... Well, season 1... Actually, series 1 to 4 in season 2 and season 1 that makes it very different in the way they're used. Because realistically, series 1, Bad Wolf and Parting of Ways, is concluded with Rose absorbing the time vortex, becoming the Bad Wolf and disintegrating the Dalek army. As epic as that is, it was only really established episode 4 that we could see into the heart of the TARDIS. The god powers she receives do come out of nowhere. Season 2, I'd say it's actually fairly a lot better. We're just, like, the Void stuff makes sense because they pass from one world to another. And using the Void, which we've seen, the handles, like, all of that, I'll accept that a lot more. Although I do have just a nitpick with that. Jackie has never been to Pete's World. Rose doesn't want to go. I get, like, she wants her mum to have someone. But if Jackie just stood in the cupboard and Rose held on for dear life, then there would be no issues, because then Rose could still pop home to see mum. Alas, we move on. Series 3, probably the worst case. The Master's defeated by the Doctor gaining god powers from which I guess it is established that it's the Archangel Network, but the power suits have never really been established like that, because surely the Master would be using that ability if...
Get a life, get a grip.
Anyway, and in series 4, the Dr. Donna, uses the Master control switch to blow up every Dalek with the Doctor. And in End of Time, which I think is actually quite an acceptable one, Rassilon, who has his gauntlet, which we've already seen him like disintegrate people with, like, he seems like quite a powerful guy. As soon as he rocks up into our universe, he undoes the Master, and I think that's a really good way of elevating the threat. You take the villain and you have the new bad one-up them, and I think that really shows off his power. So even though it does undo it, comes with that, and then the Master sends all the Time Lords back, sacrificing himself, but somehow the Doctor stays. So I don't really get that, but I'm fine with that. The distinction there is nearly all of those finales come with a cost. Series 1, Rose does save the day by going into God mode, but the Doctor has to save her and sacrifice his life and regenerate. Even though it's a Deus Ex Machina, it has a big enough cost that I'm like, that's okay, because it's not just get out of jail free card, basically. Series 2, yes, we are just sending the Daleks into the Void, but we lose Rose. It isn't like a easy jobs are good un. Series 3 doesn't really have a cost, which I think is why it's looked back at as probably the worst case in RTD1. And in Series 4, obviously the Dr. Donna, we lose Donna as we know her. So again, we lose something. And then Series 4, End of Time, David Tennant regenerates. Jumping forward to the Wish World, Shooty has to regenerate in order to save the day. So that's why I think when I sat in the cinema watching Empire of Death, I was so disappointed in it, because it is a Deus Ex Machina, it is classic RTD finale, but it had no cost. There was no sacrifice, there was no earning of this easy fix to the solution, and it kind of just really undermines the stakes. It makes it just feel cheap, whereas before, like, you can excuse the cheapness because it comes with emotional loss and character loss. It comes with, like, you losing something as an audience member that kind of, like, sweetens, in a way, the bittersweetness. No, is that the wrong way around? So then after the worlds are saved, the universe is back to good, as we all know it would be, Ruby then goes to find her mum, and I'd say this is probably, like, one of the best scenes of season 1. We find out that Ruby's mum... But actually, the scene where Ruby meets her mum is one of the best scenes. The scene before that, which I'll come back to, because I want to get the happiness that I have right now out of the way. That scene where Coffee for Ruby, I was named after, like, that whole scene is so beautifully done, and their reunion, like, it does made me emotional, and that takes a lot for something to do. Like, again, Millie Gibson, the gift that you are to Doctor Who, so well acted. And then from there we go forward to just them all being together. Then we get the most half-arsed companion exit I think we've ever had. Probably up there with Yaz, but without the logic of Yaz, because I can kind of argue that Jodie didn't, like 13, didn't want to be around Yaz not being her, I guess. But with this, it's just like, oh, you've got your mum now, so like you don't need me. But we've seen multiple times before with like Amy and Rory, even Clara, that the Doctor's happy to just jump in and out of your life. Like, it doesn't make sense to me that that would be the end. And I was kind of like, oh, this is the end? Because from all of the marketing as well, like we'd had for season 2, it was, this is your new TARDIS trio. But no, that wasn't the case. And yeah, we just got a very odd companion exit. And I wasn't a fan of Ruby's exit at all. And that was just another shitter on top of the pile of shit that we had so far this finale. And also, I don't think it helped that I spent £10 to go watch this. I was like, oh Jesus, what have I done? But anyway, back to now sort of my main, one to point number 6, the betrayal of a season arc. And I think this is one of my main, sorry, my legs are a bit hot. I think this is one of my main issues with this finale. And I'd like to give a bit of context. So I was in my final year as season 1 was coming out. It started just after I submitted my dissertation and graduate project. And my whole graduate project was a research-based project into the murder mystery genre and how it can be applied to a non-linear narrative. So like sort of like a film like Oppenheimer, where its narrative is told out of order, 2 timelines happening coercively, but like how mysteries can be utilised really well in that structure. So then I went ahead and wrote an original murder mystery screenplay where you're following both before and after the murder, but how that can allow for more reveals, more twists within the genre itself. So, I need to blow my nose. 1 second though. We're on season 1 now. So, I don't want to say that I am a better writer than Russell Davies. That's far from the truth.
No, I don't want to say like I'm a DJ, but I am. But
it's so easy to critique something that already exists and to make tweaks to it than it is to come up with the idea. Believe me, I struggle so much with coming up with ideas. After having studied the mystery genre and the murder mystery genre, I have a very good grasp on the basics of how to make a good twist, how to do a good mystery arc. And the main thing you want to achieve is to make the audience go, of course, and then on a rewatch, notice all of these clues and hints. What you don't want to do is at the last minute add in new information, which then makes the audience go, well, how would I ever have got that? Because I was never given that information. So we're suddenly told there's a street lamp that was never there before, which is what Ruby's mum is pointing at.
Excuse me?
And we're never told why she's hidden in this garb and why we're never given that. Russell T Davies' explanation is that time was shrouding her.
Yeah, of course.
All of the payoff around this mystery arc, information we never had, and then we are told that it's because we put so much emphasis on the mystery that's why like the snow came through, and that's why the mystery became so big. It's because we put the emphasis on it.
No. So let's move on.
No. You put the emphasis on it. We came up with theories. Very different. We didn't be told about this mystery, never get told about it again, then a season later because we've been theorising so much that you turn this... No. We were told to care about this mystery. We were not given the information to solve this mystery. And when I rewatch this story, this series, it's not there for me to be able to pick up on and be like, oh, of course. No. Like, I think if you compare that to like a twist in Black Mirror, when it's like, when you get that final piece of information, when you rewatch it, it's like, oh, so that's why that's happening. So that's why this is... It lacks any satisfaction of what you deserve when you get to the end of a mystery arc. And I find it so infuriating because I sort of like, what? This cannot be the same man that gave us Children of Earth and the Bad Wolf mystery, the Dr. Donner mystery, Vote Saxon, like that like subtle build, like what? And then also when you compare that to like a Moffat mystery, like when you have Series 5's arc, and that everyone thought they caught out Doctor Who on a continuity error because Matt Smith regained his jacket. But no, they were one ahead of you. That's a future version. But we did... Like, that's the stuff you want in a good mystery. You know, when I rewatch Flesh and Stone and Time of the Angels, when that scene appears, I'm like, to know that this is the future, but we'd be given this now, but in the context of now it makes sense. But in the later context, it gains a whole new meaning. We don't get that with this mystery, and it just really sours the rewatch of this season. And honestly, it sours the whole season as a whole, because rocky start, incredible middle run, some of the best Doctor Who we've had in years, one of the worst finales we've ever had. And I think when you know you're working towards a bad finale, it really kind of puts you off sitting through the good, because, well, what's the point of enjoying it now for it to get to the badness? And I compare it a lot to my friends to Game of Thrones. I love Game of Thrones season 1 to 6, but I don't think I'll ever rewatch it outside of rewatching like the key moments when I know someone else I know is watching it, because I like to see their reactions to the really great highs of the show. But I will never sit down to rewatch all the Game of Thrones, because season 7 and 8 offend its honour and legacy so much. It's like, well, what's the point of giving all my time again into this show when it's just going to leave me feeling dissatisfied and annoyed? That isn't what you want. And I think a really interesting quote has come out recently of the creators of The Boys, and they said they're really nervous about the finale, because obviously season 5, I think it is going to be the last one, and they're really nervous about it because there's so many, like, how many shows have had perfect finales? Breaking Bad, I would say series 10 of Doctor Who if that was the end. There aren't many. It's very hard to think, but it's probably more like Sopranos, I guess, has had a great finale. I haven't seen that, so I can't comment. There's probably some that do, but I haven't, like, but then there's a lot you can easily name that just went on and ruined their legacy. Game of Thrones, I've heard Lost has a bad ending. This season of Doctor Who, and The Boys writers are scared, because I would say The Boys so far has been one of the best shows I've ever seen. But if the season ends badly, if it doesn't satisfy me as an audience member, why would I rewatch it? So I think that's the issue that they have with a show. And it's just sad that Doctor Who really... Line of Duty is another example. I hate the ending of Line of Duty, to the point that now, 6 years later, there's still all these rumours of season 8 might be happening soon. That's denial. We're in denial. We're in denial that something so good could turn so bad. And I think that's the same attitude that I've had repeatedly with this season. Because at the end of season 1, when Mrs. Flood walks across the roof and says her cryptic message of, oh, what a Doctor's story, ends in absolute terror. My process to that is, it's still a trickster. This is all part of the 2-season scheme. And when you're having to use coping mechanisms like that to justify the story arcs, it's not a good sign. It's not. So yeah, that was season 1. A real mixed bag. As I say, some real highs. I really liked 15. I really liked Ruby. It was nice to have a companion that I really cared for. It was nice to have a Doctor I was really enjoying, who had good material to work with, who... I get that 13's whole arc was to be more closed off, but having an expressive Doctor who could then have those moments to shine really worked better. And just also having that creative freedom in a series, really enjoyed. But as I say, the finale, thumbs down. Yes, and I'm now going to take a little break and do season 2 tomorrow, because this has gone on a lot longer than I thought it would. I think we're nearing about 50 minutes. Yeah, this is crazy. I did not realise I had this much to say about Doctor Who. I don't know how I'm going to trim this down in the edit. Anyway, we're going to leave it there for now. And then come back tomorrow to do season 2. The changed ending, because it's very clear something went on. And the ending points of just what went wrong this era. Join me after the break.
And on that note, I'm afraid we'll have to call it a night.
What's the worst that could happen? Hello.